kind of more speaking to commissioners, probably not for projection. So just make sure you speak a little louder. And of course, we ask the audience to be a little quieter because we're not mic'd. So if you want to come a little closer to hear us better, that might be good as well. First, adoption of the agenda. Are there any agenda items to change?
Yes, 2224 Blair has been deferred, and we'd ask that you reverse items P and Q, so the training is the last item. And then we also wanted to check and see if there was anyone in the audience that wanted to speak to 209 South 5th, and if not, maybe we could move that to consent.
So once again, is anyone here regarding 209 South 5th Street?
That wanted to speak? I know the applicant's here. Is there anyone who wanted to speak for or against it?
Okay, so we're going to move that to the consent agenda, 209 South 5th Street.
And just to add to that, it is one you've seen before, so it's not a brand new case. They have done everything that you had asked about last time, and they've already worked out a lot of the issues that were part of the conditions. Okay. So that's why we were recommending consent.
Okay, great. Are there any council members here? I didn't recognize any. Okay. Motion to approve last month's meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Motion carries. So for each...
I'm so sorry.
That's
Could we
okay.
get a vote on the agenda changes?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So the agenda changes, which I think I can repeat them. 2224 Blair Boulevard is deferred this month. 209 South 5th Street has been moved to the consent agenda, and at the end we're going to swap P and Q.
Mr. Chair, move to adopt the changes to the agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. So we're going to start. For each case, there will be a public hearing. We ask that each applicant keep their presentation to under 10 minutes. We may reserve 2 minutes as rebuttal. We ask that the public keep their comments to 2 minutes unless they are representing an organization or group, and they may have 5 minutes. And as you can see, the timer is here, so you can use that as you're presenting your cases. Appeals to the decision of the Historic Zoning Commission pursuant to provision of section 2.6A.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, notice is hereby given that a final hearing before this commission is appealable to the Chancery Court of Davidson County or the Circuit Court of Davidson County via statutory writ of certiorari. You're advised to seek your own independent legal counsel to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements are met. You should also seek independent legal advice regarding the applicability of the writ of certiorari to the specific decision of the Historic Zoning Commission. The next is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda.
This afternoon's consent agenda includes 1703 Ashwood Avenue, new construction addition, 3703 Richland Avenue, new construction infill and outbuilding, 1311A 4th Avenue North, alterations and new construction addition, 1507 Fatherland Street, new construction addition, and also 209 South 5th Street. Staff has reviewed these projects, finds that they meet their respective design guidelines, and recommends approval of the items on the consent agenda.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, thanks, Paul. Open public hearing. Does anyone have any comments at all about any of the items that were presented today on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, closed public hearing. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So the next one online is overlay recommendation and design guideline adoptions, 1722 Villa Place.
And before we move on to that, I'd like to let you know that 2804 Hawthorne just deferred. So if anyone here is here for 2804 Hawthorne, it is not on today's agenda. So 1722 Villa Place, this is one of the 4 types of historic overlays we have. The property meets the zoning ordinance for being a historic building. It is significant for its architecture, and so meets criterion C of the ordinance, and for its association with a couple who were important players in Nashville's civil rights movement and the AME Church, thereby meeting criterion B. Just a little information, the Prims family, their family members owned the property from 1955 to 2003. In 1956, Bishop Howard T. Prim joined 12 others from the Council of Bishops of the African Methodist Church in appealing to President Eisenhower to act against the persecution of African American leaders in Montgomery. So that's a lot of why this building is important. There's a more detailed history, thanks to one of our staff members, in your report. There are additional requirements for historic B&B that you typically don't review, such as signage and parking. To meet all those requirements, we recommend a condition that the submittal of a site plan be provided to staff so that we can review the location of parking and signage, as well as information about the size and materials of signage, and a certificate, make sure that there's been a certificate issued by the fire marshal. In summary, staff suggests that the MHCC recommend to council approval of a historic bed and breakfast overlay for 1722 Villa Place, with the conditions that a site plan is provided to staff so that the location of parking and signage may be reviewed. The sign shall only include the address or property owner's name, which is a requirement of the ordinance. Materials for the sign be provided for review, and the applicant provide proof that the fire marshal has approved the structure for safety. Again, that's a requirement of the ordinance. Staff recommends that the design guidelines for the South Music Road neighborhood conservation zoning overlay be used to guide future exterior alterations, because this building is very close to that. And then if in the future there is an Edge Hill neighborhood zoning overlay, that they switch, because they will be in that district, that they switch to those neighborhood conservation zoning overlay guidelines.
Okay. Any more questions? Any questions at all for Robin? Okay. Is the applicant here, would like to come and present this case? Applicant's not here. Open public hearing. Would anyone like to speak regarding this project? Seeing none, close public hearing. Any discussion or a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that this body recommend to the council approval of the historic bed and breakfast overlay for 1722 Villa Place, with the conditions that a site plan is provided to staff so that the location of parking and signage may be reviewed. The sign shall only include the address or property owner's name. Materials for the sign shall be provided for review, and that the applicant provide proof that the fire marshal has approved the structure for safety. And further recommend that the design guidelines for the South Music Road neighborhood conservation zoning overlay be used to guide future exterior alterations to be replaced in the future if a neighborhood conservation overlay is established for the Edge Hill neighborhood with Edge Hill's design guidelines.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So the next on the agenda is 2517 Blair Boulevard.
Okay, 2517 Blair Boulevard is a circa 1932 brick bungalow that contributes to the historic character of the Hillsborough West End neighborhood. There is an existing outbuilding on the lot. The date of construction of the existing outbuilding is not known. It's possible that it's the same structure that appears in this about 1932 Sanborn map, but we don't know that for certain, but it's possible. The application is to construct a second story on top of the existing one-story outbuilding. So the existing outbuilding is about 16 feet tall, and the proposed addition would increase it by over 8 feet to be 24 feet 5 inches tall. I'm sorry, I have a typo up there. It says 25 feet 5, but it's actually 24 feet 5. It will also raise the eave height to about 15 feet 10 inches. So staff has two concerns about this project, about adding on top of the existing outbuilding. The first concern is that the existing outbuilding does not meet the base zoning setbacks and the setbacks that the commission has established for outbuildings. For garages of this size, base zoning and the design guidelines ask for a 5-foot setback. The existing garage is anywhere between 1 foot and 2 foot 8 inches from the side property line. It does meet the rear setback requirement of 3 feet, so it's really just the side setback that is an issue. Staff finds that increasing the height of the outbuilding from 1 story to 2 stories and from approximately 16 feet to 24 feet 5 inches it increases the nonconformity of the existing outbuilding, so it makes it more non-conforming with the with the base zoning and with the design guidelines. Staff's second concern is that the 2-story form and its ridge and eave heights are not subordinate to the historic house. The proposed addition to the existing outbuilding will create a 2-story structure behind a 1.5-story historic house. So here's a rendering provided by the architect. The outbuilding's ridge and eave heights are significantly taller than the historic house and do not meet the design guidelines. So here's a side rendering submitted by the architect. The ridge height of the house from the foundation line is approximately 22 feet, and its eave height from the foundation line is about 10 feet. If you take the average eave heights from from the grade, accounting for grade, the average eave height is about 12 feet 6 inches. By comparison, the proposed outbuilding has from the slab at the front, it looks like there's a little bit of slope towards the back, but kind of taking that slab from the front, it's about 24 feet 5 inches to the ridge and 15 feet 10 inches to the eave. The site does slope down from the front, but even taking the average eave height into consideration, again, the eave height's taller even with accounting for the grade where the house is. Because the proposed eave and ridge heights of the outbuilding are taller than the eave and ridge heights of the historic house, staff finds that the outbuilding's height and scale do not meet Section 2B1H of the design guidelines. Just a little bit of background information. On sites like this where there is a significant slope down, the Commission has traditionally not given outbuildings additional height when it slopes down. By contrast, when the site slopes up, those properties aren't penalized for being taller. That's why we kind of look at the average grade and the heights from the foundation line. So here's just one more rendering. And so to summarize, staff is recommending disapproval because the outbuilding does not meet the base zoning side setback, and increasing its size will only increase the nonconformity of the outbuilding. And the second reason for recommending disapproval is because the height and scale of the outbuilding are larger than that of the historic house. So here's the official staff recommendation. We recommend disapproval of the addition to the outbuilding, finding that its height, scale, and setback do not meet Section 2BH of the Hillsborough West End Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay Design Guidelines. Happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here.
Any questions for staff? Okay, thanks, Muslim. Would the applicant like to come forward and state your name and address?
Blaine Bonadise, 1606 Linden Avenue, the architect on the project. Can we go to the very first slide, perhaps?
Oh, you have that.
Oh, I do. Somebody show me how to do this. Okay. What we don't have shown here are the Sanborn maps. Are those? Did you include those?
Go back further, there's a Sanborn map. There you go. That's the 1932 earliest one.
So what you're not seeing here are some additional outbuildings that kind of bracket our property, including, on
To be at the
all
microphone,
four
please.
sides. And we think that the outbuilding that we have is in character with all those contiguous properties back behind us, which you're not seeing in this slide. We provided that to Historic in order to, make that point. The building exists today and is not doing anybody any harm. We feel like if we go up, we're not doing any additional harm. I did talk to the neighbor. We did get a survey, and her only concern, the neighbor on the left, was the 2 big trees in the back. And those actually exist on her property, which we've made her aware of. And so she has no issue with it whatsoever. One thing I want to make you guys aware of is that the finished floor of the house and the finished floor of the garage is a 6-foot difference. In other words, we go down 6 feet or so before we hit the garage. So when we build the garage to the second floor, We are no taller than the house. We poured over this code, and there is nothing in this code that is contrary to what our proposal is before you. So I guess I am confused as to why we're not being approved here, because there's nothing in this code that we have proposed that's not according to the code.
One clarification to your presentation. You're saying that the surrounding Sanborns were bigger mass? Is that what you were?
And I'm saying that this is a very typical situation where we have this outbuilding in the back corner, very tight to the property lines.
Okay, gotcha.
And as you probably know, a lot of those property lines, particularly in these older neighborhoods, have been shifted and moved around and that kind of thing. So I think that's probably happened in this case, where we're a whole lot closer than we probably were at one point.
Okay.
So I have a question too. So are you keeping the existing structure and adding on vertically, or are you rebuilding? Are you building a new structure?
Not a new structure. We would put a new floor system on top of the existing walls, and then build new exterior walls and put a roof on that, with an 8-foot ceiling height on the second floor. So it's pretty minimal.
Okay, any more questions to the applicant? Okay, thank you, and reserve 2 minutes for rebuttal at the end if necessary.
Do we have more time?
Absolutely, yeah. Also, state your name and address as well.
Okay. My name is Megan Peets, and I live in that house, in 2517 Blair. We moved about a year and a half ago from Boston. We lived in a brownstone in Boston and loved Hillsborough Village because of the historic neighborhood. Mostly, though, I'm not going to lie, I told my husband we weren't going to move to Nashville unless we could find a neighborhood that we could walk in. And so he found this one. We now walk to school, we walk to the grocery store, and we walk to work. We have 2 small children and have a 3rd one on the way. And I don't know if you guys have ever tried to take a conference call with 2 small children. It is impossible. I hide in my closet a lot, which is why we called Blaine. So a lot of our neighbors behind us and on other sides across the street have similar buildings. So when we talked to them, they suggested something like this. That's the whole point of it. We just want somewhere where I can take a conference call without hiding from our small children, because we don't want to move. We don't want to have to move to the suburbs. We don't want to have to move even, out of a neighborhood with sidewalks that we can walk or scoot or bike to school. So I just thought that was important to know. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, open public hearing. Would anyone like to speak regarding this project? Okay, seeing none, no need for rebuttal, so close public hearing. Close up hearing, discussion. Okay, I'll start with you, Ann.
Well, I was going to say, he was asking, I think you stated that it is a non-conforming structure now. And this, to answer your question, what just doesn't fit into the code, I think she answered that. And for me, she answered that. So.
Do you have any other comments?
No.
Okay.
I mean, there's in our staff report, and I read this, and I drive in this neighborhood a lot. I mean, yeah, the outbuildings are common, to the applicant's point. A 2-story form in an outbuilding, I can't think of one, or at least not prevalent, especially with, from the street, it reads as a 1-story house, essentially, just because of the roof form. I mean, I understand the need for more space, but, the 2-story form for me is too much, and being right on the property line, it's not, you didn't build it, but that's how it is, so that's how it was. So that's just for me. I agree with staff's findings.
Yeah, let me back up a minute. Let me ask Melissa a question. You made the comment that there are 8-foot ceiling heights in the second story. Even if they were to lower that ceiling height, it's still a non-conforming structure.
Yes, I think against staff's 2 concerns are, one, that increasing the height at all is just increasing non-conformity. But even if this was meeting the setbacks, we still have an issue with it because The design guidelines say that the eave height needs to be 10 feet or less, and the
Okay,
ridge height needs to be less
okay,
than
I'm just wondering.
Okay.
Renee?
Well, I also agree with both commissioners, and also that it is not subordinate to the main house, which is historic. So that is, I think, one of our charges as well. So, other than the non-conforming also.
Sir? Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you point out where the, whatever B, that's the subordinate
2B.
structure, 2B.
2H1.
I'm trying to find it. I'm on my.
It is.
Sorry, but
2BH1.
I didn't make it very clear.
It's not italicized. It's not italicized.
Give me 1 minute, sorry.
Chair Jones.
Maybe while you're looking for that, Cyril, do you have your comments? Please do. While he's looking for that.
I don't have anything different than what's already been said.
Excuse me. Any other comments?
I'm in agreement as well.
Okay. How about you, Ben?
I think what I'd have to say would reiterate some things that have been said by the commissioners, accepting, or not accepting necessarily the italicized, but I think if you read item 1, it's pretty clear on, it's not contrasting greatly with surrounding historic outbuildings in terms of height, scale, and the relationship of the back building to the front building, certainly being 2 to 1.5, is problematic, regardless of the grade difference in where you measure from. I know it's important in establishing what the height of the front house is, but this certainly exceeds that.
So on the so the italicized portion under 2BH1 says the DADU or outbuilding, and just a point of clarification, this is not a DADU. This neighborhood is owned single family, so they can't have a DADU. The DADU or outbuilding shall maintain a proportional mass, size, and height to ensure it is not taller or wider than the principal structure on the lot. The DADU or outbuilding height shall not exceed the height of the principal structure, with a maximum eave height of 10 feet for a 1-story DADU or outbuilding, and a 17-foot for 2-story DADUs or outbuildings. The roof ridge height of a DADU or outbuilding must be less than the principal building and shall not exceed 25 feet in height. Is that clarified?
And just, and to Commissioner Mosley's point, just in 2BH1, should reflect character, massing, and everything. So, yeah.
Would you like to craft a motion?
Regarding 2517 Blair Boulevard, I move to disapprove the project and with staff's recommendation.
Okay, we have a motion and we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Motion carries. 1300 Elmwood Avenue.
Okay. This is a fairly similar case. 1300 Elmwood Avenue is a 1.5-story bungalow constructed around 1930. The house contributes to the Belmont-Hillsborough Neighborhood Conservation Zoning overlay. The applicant is proposing a 1.5-story garage in the rear yard near the alley. The proposal meets the design guidelines for location, setbacks, square footage, ridge height, roof form, design standards, and known materials. The only issue with the design is that the eave heights are too tall. For a 1-story outbuilding such as this, as we just discussed, the guidelines state that the eaves can be a maximum of 10 feet high. In this case, the eave heights on the house are about 13 feet, but still the maximum allowed for a 1.5-story is a 10-foot eave. You can see they're proposed here at 12 feet 8 inches.
There are no unusual site constraints or grade issues on this property that would necessitate an exception to this 10-foot rule. In fact, since 2015, MHZC has approved 2 prior outbuildings designed for this site, both of which meet the 10-foot eve requirements. The applicant has stated correctly that there are other outbuildings in the immediate vicinity that have been approved by MHZC with taller eve heights. The one immediately next door at 1302 Elmwood was approved in 2007, and the one at 2402 Belmont was approved with 12-foot 6 eve heights 3 years ago in 2015. In the last few years, MHCC has made a conscious effort to be consistent with its decisions regarding outbuildings and to hold them all to the guidelines unless there's a compelling site-specific reason to make an exception. Staff does not find such a reason in this case, and so, per previous direction from this commission, we are recommending disapproval. So staff recommends disapproval of the project, finding it does not meet Section 2BI of the Belmont-Hillsborough Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay Design Guidelines due to the eve height. Happy to answer questions, and the applicant is here. I'm just trying to get this to come up for you.
But you,
Oh, but we.
the mic's for the TV
Yeah.
footage.
Yeah.
so
Okay.
yes,
So you have to be at the mic.
Find a way to make this work.
So I'm seeing it here. I don't know why it's not going there.
Okay. Well, basically, what's we're trying to put on the screen is what we have on the poster board as well.
Okay.
Thank you for your time today and your consideration. If you don't know me, my name is Matt Schutz. I'm a preservationist and architect in town, and working with Tom Selinsky on this rear accessory structure.
Could you put your address too?
Oh, yes. Right now I'm at 5025 Hillsborough Pike. And I'll try and quickly explain our process and logic as to how we feel this project meets the guidelines. We are so appreciative. Jenny, she came to meet us out on site. And this is a tough issue. This goes to the heart of preservation, and we appreciate what y'all do to save historic structures and our cultural heritage. I'll be frank, I don't quite understand the staff's recommendation on this particular project. I do think it's a little bit different than the previous project, if for no other reason the context is different. We've matched the details of the existing historic house in every way as the guidelines request. Our eave height matches the house, our siding and details match the house. Our ridge height is shorter than the house by 6 feet. Our proposal is significantly shorter than an accessory structure approved by the staff and commission, only a stone's throw away at 2402 Belmont Boulevard, and it's absolutely dwarfed by the large 2-story additions across the alley, as well as the existing accessory structure next door, both of which, or all of which were approved as well. The guidelines clearly state on page 8 that the italicized language is not part of the guidelines, but it feels in this instance like they're being wielded as if they're almost carved in stone. I think the guidelines are there to provide for provide for creative solutions to the benefit of preservation, which is what we're trying to do. Over the course of the design process, we've examined several possibilities, including a larger addition, and we've ultimately settled on this solution, which is a very small addition and an appropriately scaled rear accessory structure. What we're trying to avoid is this demolition by addition that we see across the alley and throughout the neighborhood. And as an example, I'll call out 2015 Linden Avenue, which is directly across the alley. There, a large 2-story addition connects with a 1-story house. It is paired with a 1-story garage. It easily received a staff recommendation of approval, but it has precipitated extensive demolition of the house's historically significant features. It's very visual impactful and even visible from Elmwood Avenue. Next door at 1213 Linden Avenue, an even larger 2-story addition was approved behind a 1.5-story historic house. And just a few blocks away, another small historic home has just been eviscerated at 1408 Paris Avenue. Looking at these behemoth-style additions around their neighborhood and from their backyard, it has no doubt had an effect on Mary and Tom, and I think that's why they're trying to consider something more historically considerate. In summation, I would like to reiterate that the homeowner has taken great time and energy and care to follow the letter and intent of the guidelines, gone through several different iterations. I've tried to honor their effort with my own, but please do not take my word for it. Re-examine the demonstrable evidence included in our packet and our three-dimensional drawings that we provided as part of our packet, as well as previously approved cases, photographs, and the actual guidelines we've presented. As a preservationist, I'm concerned that following the staff recommendation will actually result in a design solution that is less compatible with the unique historic context and the guidelines. And I've brought with me a couple of visual aids today. And Tom, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that line. Oh, yeah, visual aids. First, here's just a globe of the guidelines, which I'm sure you guys know very well. Something that's often not included in the staff recommendation because there's just not room is at the very beginning of the guidelines it says the italicized portion of the guidelines are not part of the guidelines themselves. So they're a guide. It's especially if you go to the staff and say, I'd like this approved at staff level. Yeah, take that italicized language and hit every bullet point down.
Could you speak into the mic, please?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if you're trying to get something approved at the staff level, hit that italicized language. But once it comes to the commission, you're charged with actually looking at the bold guidelines, which give a little extra leeway, again, especially in the case where it leads towards the preservation of historic structures. And that's what we're trying to do here. On the other side of this, and I'm sure you know the two outbuilding tenets of the guidelines, basically compatibility in scale and placement.
You better stay close to that mic. I'm sorry.
Compatibility of scale and placement. Turn this around. This is the home on 1408 Paris Avenue, and so this is what happens sometimes if we're going to treat the italicized language, as 10 Commandments set in stone sort of thing. It pushes a little extra mass towards the addition, and in my experience, that's much more impactful, much more dangerous to the historic character of the district than a little extra space above the garage, especially in this case where we're matching the eve height. We're much lower than everything around it. I think that the danger would be much greater if we pushed that back to the addition. And then also, I think another reason this case is separate is...
To the microphone, please. I'm sorry. The microphone.
Okay. Yeah. I might have to say this because I don't know if I can hold this. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. So the context in this case, I know the staff has been here too, but if you look at the house directly across the alley, and these are all at the same scale. So here's our house directly across the alley, one-story house, two-story addition. If you look at the photographs, you see this two-story addition when you're taking a picture of Tom's house from Elmwood Avenue. And right next door to that house is the one you see at the bottom. That's 1213 Linden Avenue. Same sort of thing, two-story addition on a one-story house, very impactful. In this house at the top, 1213 Linden Avenue, all the historic windows have been removed. I think part of that is because when you do construction so close to the existing house, you're already demolishing a bunch of stuff. It becomes this kind of demolition by addition that you've probably seen all over this neighborhood and perhaps your own neighborhood. In the middle here, we have our proposal. You can kind of see the gentle slope of the lot, how this is lower than the house. You can see the ghost of the outbuilding behind it and see how this has a much lower eave height, much lower ridge height. And then you can take a look at 2402 Belmont Boulevard, which is where we started. Tom talked to Lindsay Trella-Moffitt, is that correct? And kind of said, what was your experience? And so we tried sort of to start with this as a bit of a template, and then we took this and we said, what's our context with our existing house? Lowered the eaves, lowers the ridge height, connected the gables so that it was less visibly massive, and came up with something that we really feel meets the guidelines and works towards preservation. Okay. Thank you.
I guess if I have a second, I'm just here as a homeowner. I've been...
State your name and address.
Yeah, I'll state. So my name's Thomas Solinsky. I live at 1300 Elmwood Avenue. Myself and Mary have been residents for 12 years at 1300. So we've seen a lot of changes, a lot of positive changes in the neighborhood. But we're certainly, I've been part of the Belmont, the BHN neighborhood, the Belmont Hillsborough neighborhood for 12 years basically, but I've also worked with the organization as well, and very active in the neighborhood too. So we are certainly very, very excited and happy to live in a neighborhood that has a historic overlay, and we definitely want to abide by the rules that are in place, and we just feel in this case we have the tallest structure on the block, although it is, or on our side of the block, although it is still considered a 1.5-story structure. It's much taller than most of the other homes that were built, on our stretch of our street. So we wanted to also build something that matched the character of the house, and I think that Matt has done a wonderful job with that. And when we saw what Lindsay Trella had done on Belmont, we thought, hey, this looks like it fits the neighborhood. It looks like a structure that we would want to have at our house as well. So we kind of took that design, and Matt tweaked it a little bit, which I believe even made it shorter than what she had. But their house, I don't think that it causes any problems or anything like that. But we just want to make sure that everyone here can come to an agreement that this is something that would add to a benefit to the historic value of the neighborhood and not take away anything from it. So thank you all again for all the work that you do. We're very, very pleased with a lot of the great things that you've done for the neighborhood. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
I do. Just clarification. So is it a 1.5-story or is it a 2-story?
It's a 1.5 story.
Okay.
So even the italicized portion of the guidelines doesn't really talk to 1.5-story garage. It says 1-story and 2-story. It doesn't even say only a 1-story garage can be behind a 1-story house or a 2-story behind a 2-story house. And historically, you look at garages and they're kind of all over the map. I mean, I think you can say there's a general pattern of shorter garages for shorter homes and taller garages for taller homes. But there were definitely instances where, historic homeowners were like, I don't want to mess with the roof shape of my existing house, so I'm going to put a little extra space in an accessory structure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Open public hearing. Would anyone like to speak regarding this project? Seeing none, close public hearing. Why don't we start with you, Ben?
May not be wise. I'll just start by saying this one, to me, certainly goes more towards passing the eye test of the outbuilding being subservient to the residents, and I'll leave my comments at that for now.
Okay. You, LaDonna?
I think just based on what the applicant stated, I too feel that it would not be problematic for the structure to be that particular height, the E height, as presented.
Sir?
First, I'd like to compliment the applicant and architect on the presentation. I feel like we know what we're looking at here, and we understand between what was in the materials that staff put together and this, it helps to see that, which is especially important when you're looking at making a decision that might be different than what we've done in the past. I do feel that the evidence suggests on this that it does meet the bold portions of the guidelines and is subservient to the main building.
Okay. Renee?
It's sort of a general comment on how this board has come to view outbuildings and DADUs. So I think that's where we're more sensitive to be consistent and I'm speaking to you, applicant, and I agree with the commissioners as well, because we're on that edge, because you're going 1/2 story, 1/2 story, and that's why I asked you that. But I think because you bring up the points of other properties that look like this, and this has been approved in the past. So those are, if they have been approved in the past, this is a different board. So when you have perspectives and when you have interpretations of what the hard line or bold versus the italicized, we've come to italicized so that it's more consistent for the staff to say they can do an administrative approval. So just, I know you've come before our board before, and we appreciate, how you do bring us details. But just as a background is that we are charged with making some maybe harder lines when we've come to today on how it's been done in the past. So sort of a general comment there.
Mr. Kalen?
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Bell. Sometimes, what's been approved in the past, that's the thing. We can't hold that much weight on it because most of the time, the majority of them were before, our participation as individuals. But in this instance, it's a 1.5 story form. To me, I like the roof shape. It just kind of breaks it up. I like the design. I think being a 1.5 story form, it is a tall existing house. I do understand that it's a little bit, of a push with the eave height as our guidelines, but in this instance with this design and the existing house on this lot, I generally, I like the design of it, and a little bit more eave height in this instance doesn't offend me. I don't think it hurts the historic character of the neighborhood.
Joanne?
Yeah, I don't have any additional comment.
Okay. Any other additional comments from anyone else?
Yeah, I'd like to add a little clarity or color to the delta between what we looked at previously and this one. This one presents to the house a roof line that is, although it has a dormer, that is in the same orientation as the house is. So you get that lower roof appearance, as opposed to if it were turned 90 degrees, it would appear certainly to be less subservient to the house. So having the same orientation is a small thing, but it matters here. I think for our discussions and deliberations, in a footprint this small, this small in a garage, we're going to see this, in 750 square feet limitation. The push here is at a knee wall at the edge. In that, I would feel even better about this project or other garages if the knee wall, if you were bearing at the top of the first level or the garage level, and even might be more in keeping if the roof slope were increased. I don't know that that's a reason not to approve this, but I think those are some small little details that can cause things to not be subservient to the house, and certainly to be out of keeping with historic. The guideline is historic outbuildings in the district, not the one that somebody built next door or any other time. That's not necessarily a criticism of this project, but I think it's a very unique and specific thing to a garage that is in keeping, 1.5 story garage with a 1.5 story house that is lower than the ridge line of the house. Those are very significant items with respect to this design and this project that, in my mind, have it meeting both roof shape and item D for materials, and not contrasting greatly in its shape and form.
Quick comments?
Does the topography help that doesn't quite, is it flat? Is that topography flat?
It's primarily flat. You can see in the drawing it sort of slopes up a little bit towards the alley, but to stand out there and hopefully you can see some of the photographs, it really doesn't appear to slope. So you can walk it, it doesn't feel like you're walking uphill, and visually kind of
Yeah,
I mean, nothing's completely flat and level, but
yeah, I think we got it. Yeah, we're good.
yeah.
That's it. Okay, any more comments or motion?
Mr. Chairman, with respect to 1300 Elmwood Avenue, I move for approval with conditions that the staff review finished materials and detailing and any placement of mechanical or other units.
The standard conditions.
Would you mind repeating a little louder?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I move with respect to 1300 Elmwood Avenue, I recommend approval with the conditions that the staff review final finished materials, detailing, and location of any mechanical units or other items not shown on the plans.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. 1507 Shelby Avenue.
Give me 1 minute. Let me see if I can get our presentation back up. Okay, Commissioners, so the item that was next on the agenda, 209 South Fifth Street, was approved as part of the consent agenda, so we are moving on to 1507 Shelby Avenue. 1507 Shelby Avenue is a circa 1950s house that does not contribute to the historic character of the historic neighborhood. Staff has already issued an administrative permit for the house's demolition. The application is to construct a duplex infill on the lot and an outbuilding. The infill and the outbuilding meet all of the base zoning setbacks, and the location of the front setback for the infill will approximate the location of the existing house's front wall. Staff finds that to be appropriate. Here is the front facade. The house is 2 stories with a maximum height of 29 feet. The width of 36 feet and the 2-story form and the height do meet the historic context. I'll show in a little bit that there are some 2-story structures on the street. The roof slope is 512. The design guidelines require a minimum slope of 612. It's staff's understanding that the applicant is okay with changing the roof pitch to be 612, but they're here and they can qualify or clarify that. Here are the side facades. The known materials have all been approved by the Commission in the past. Here are some elevation drawings of the 1-story garage in the rear. It does meet all of the setbacks and the design guidelines for height and scale. Here are some context photos. You can see on the bottom there's a 2-story 1940s apartment structure a couple houses down. And then across the street on the top, you can see there is a 2-story single-family house across the street, although the other houses on the block are mainly 1 and 1.5 stories. So in conclusion, staff is recommending approval of the infill and the outbuilding with the condition that the finished floor height be consistent with the finished floor heights of the adjacent historic houses. The roof slope be a minimum of 612, but by increasing the roof slope, we still want the height of the structure to remain no taller than 29 feet. The front doors be at least half glass. Staff approve all windows and doors and a brick sample, the materials of the rear porch floor, columns and steps, and the location of the HVAC. With these conditions, staff finds that the proposed infill and outbuilding meet Section 2B of the Laughlin Springs Design Guidelines. The applicant is here. I'm happy to answer any questions before I turn it over to them.
Okay, any questions for Melissa? Okay, thanks. Would the applicant like to come forward and state your case? Please also state your name and address.
Hello, Sandy Adams, 2405 Crocker Springs Road. I have reviewed the staff's recommendations. We don't have any issues. I do have a couple of questions. Raising the roof pitch to 612 is fine. Right now, I've got the right side of the house the finished floor elevation the same as the existing house at right about 495 feet elevation. So if we were to keep the house at 29 feet, we'd be lowering the porch floor about a foot, what it is shown now, and about a foot lower of the existing house. Since the design guidelines state that they can be 30 feet in height, I'm wondering if we could keep it at 30 feet so that with the 612 pitch, the floor is about the same. My other question would be how we work the average floor height. Do we take the average of, we've got the house on the right being quite a bit higher and the house on the left being quite a bit lower because of the slope of the street. So do we take the average between those two? Because the finished floor elevation can't be exactly the same, obviously.
If I remember correctly, those are not historic houses, right, on either side of the Midtown? I think the short answer is kind of when you're getting out there doing the construction, give us a call, and Fred or one of us in the office can go out and meet with you and just kind of answer those questions. And sometimes it's, in the field, and when the site is ready for the foundation and the footings, it's probably that's kind of the best opportunity for us to have the best input.
Okay. And then my other question would be the front doors. The homeowners would like to have more of the craftsman style with the glass just at about a third of the top instead of half glass. If that's, a lot of the houses on that street are not half glass. So that was just another question that the homeowner had and I'm interested in. So basically, I'm just wondering about if we can go to 30 feet and then the front doors.
Okay. Are you with the applicant?
Yes, she's the homeowner.
Would you like to speak as well? Okay. All right. Okay, good. Any questions for the applicant?
What, I guess sorry, I have a question for Melissa.
Oh, go ahead.
With that's the first time I've seen the half glass. Is that just specific for this neighborhood, or?
Actually, I don't want to say it's in every single design guidelines, but it's in most of them, if not all of them.
I guess just we've never seen it where they hadn't had that, and so you had to point it out. Okay, I'm just.
Or most people just haven't questioned it. So, the design guidelines ask for half glass because that was for older homes that was more traditional.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Did you have something, Ben?
I did. I think to bring clarity to the owner's question, which is a significant one. If you inspect the foundation after it's already been built and there's a problem, that'd be a problem. So I think having the slope, understanding the slope across this lot and kind of where they start from, we'll maybe provide a little bit of deliberation about that and give some guidance so that in the field the staff can, whoever inspects it can have some guidance from us. It's not a long conversation.
Like 2 blocks or so.
Sure.
I think where it's the highest, then obviously it's going to get taller, but keeping it to the minimum possible, so it's the foundation is really large.
Yes. Okay.
Any other questions for staff? For the applicant? Okay. Thank you very much.
Did you get your questions answered?
Maybe.
But we have
no,
to.
not really. The 30
I think we have to. Yeah, we have to
just
deliberate
gonna have
on
you
the
guys talk
slope
about it.
and the doors.
I do have a question. Is there anything that would indicate the existing topography of the site in your? I didn't see it in the package that would illustrate the existing topography, other than the photographs.
No, I don't have that on the plans. I do have an actual site plan that shows the FFE of the existing house, but it doesn't show the FFEs of the neighboring houses.
And what the topography on the site existing?
I do have that.
You
yes.
do have that.
And
Okay.
so the slope that you see on the plans is pretty very accurate actually for what the lot is currently.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Open public hearing. Would anyone like to speak regarding this project? Okay. Seeing none, close public hearing. Discussion. Maybe Ben or Cyril, maybe we can take on about the slope, the pitch roof slope. They'd, yeah, let's just start.
So a question for Melissa. Would it be appropriate to give them guidance as far as the elevation of the floor to actually look at what the stoop would be above the grade, so that so that when you look at a finished grade, whether you have 3 risers, 4 risers, some guidance like that, so that they can go ahead and plan ahead. And
that's definitely. I mean, we still want to inspect it in the field just to make sure because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Sure.
Any thoughts about the roof slope? Question? Do you have any, Ben?
I'm still wrapping the comment from staff was it's 29 shown now, the ridge height at a 512, and a 612 would make it, if nothing was changed with the grade, would make it 30 something.
4, but I mean, we could lower the floor line.
4. And 30 is sort of that's the max we want to get to. And that 30 is measured from
the floor line, or
the floor line, or where are we measuring 30 from? I want to make sure we're.
Their measurement. If you look at the screen behind you, I know it's not the ideal location, but there's the 29 feet that they propose currently was taken from kind of the grade at the highest point, and so that was a measurement we took. So.
Okay.
With a site like this where there's significant grade, kind of pick a point and just measure from there.
Sure.
I mean, I would, kind of defer to the architects on the commission, but, I mean, I would like to ideally have, the 612 pitch with, 30 feet total max, like absolute max. So if, with the grade, is that possible? I don't know, but, that's ideally what I would like to see, and I agree with with staff on that, with all the recommendations, and with, the third one, front doors be at least half glass. I mean, that's what's character, for the neighborhood, and that's what is on the guidelines. Then, I agree with that as well. So, I pretty much agree with staff's recommendation summary. I'm just not sure, how the different changes can be, the two things can be melded together for a solution.
I don't know if you guys different, but I could live with the 512. I guess the 30 feet is a little bit more for me, but I don't know if either of you have, or anybody. I'm sorry, didn't mean to, but if anybody, the 30 feet seems to be a little bit more than the 512, and just in this application. But I'd interested in see what everybody else might think.
Also, because it's a 2-story, and it does have a bit more massing than, to me, the other structures that are adjacent. I mean, there are other 2 stories there, but it seems that if you don't want to enlarge a building or make it look more, out of context. So I think, again, architects probably have, again, better view on that, but just looking at the context of the other buildings as a general, it's edging on a large structure.
Yeah.
You guys have any other comments about that?
I don't. I think to provide some guidance, and the staff had mentioned in the field on the right side of the higher elevation, if no more than 2 blocks are exposed with your window wells and what you're trying to do with the site, I think that would be the guidance that you'd have as you're trying to set foundations and then have somebody come in.
Do you mind putting that in a motion? That would.
Sure, I can. Having somebody give it a haircut after you're done, that's going to be problematic, constructability wise. Before we make a motion,
Sure.
I wanted to, on the 512, 612 slope, I'm just wondering how perceptible that's going to be at the end of the day. It's one, 1.4 taller. If we want to press it down, I have a feeling that if we make them do 612 and then we're trying, those two things are working against each other, and I feel like it's having we've seen the super tall porch, and that's less desirable than making sure we meet a 612 porch, and I think as presented, it doesn't read as out of character or out of keeping with roof shapes in the neighborhood. So
I agree.
With that said, I'll make a motion to approve the application as submitted for, let me get back to the staff recommendations. Thank you. For 1507 Shelby Avenue, with the guidance on item number 1 that approximately 2 blocks, certainly no more than, not a full third block at the high side of the site would be exposed to mitigate the sloping nature of the site and not have the porch, way out of the ground. And that the roof slope as presented at 512 is acceptable in this case, to not have the sloping side and the height of the roof working at opposition to each other. All the other recommendations are as written in the staff's report.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. 1503 Gartland Avenue.
All right, so the house at 1503 Gartland Avenue was constructed circa 1930 and contributes to the character of the Laughlin Springs Easton Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay. The plan before you meets the design guidelines for height, scale, setbacks, materials, and roof shape, but does not meet the design guidelines for the proportion and rhythm of openings. The application includes a rear addition and side dormer additions on the historic house. The addition's located at the rear of the historic house and is inset appropriately. So the design guidelines, this is a front elevation, the design guidelines allow side dormer additions that are compatible with the scale and design of the building. As proposed, these side dormers set in 2 feet from the wall below is required and incorporate a hipped roof form similar to that of the primary roof form on the historic house. So here's the left side facade. As proposed, the rear addition is no taller or wider than the historic house. And the right side facade. In this case, staff recommends that the side dormer addition, which is outlined here in red, incorporate additional glazing to fill the dormer, which will help minimize the perceived width of that dormer. Filling the dormer with glazing is consistent with previous decisions by the Commission with regard to dormers. And here's the rear elevation, which also includes a screen porch. And in conclusion, staff recommends approval of the project with the following conditions: that staff approve the final details of the roof color and trim and dimensions, materials for the windows, doors, rear porch floor, rear porch steps, and rear porch prior to purchase and installation. And 2, that the dormer on the right side facade of the historic house incorporate additional glazing. And the 3rd condition with regard to the HVAC, the applicant has already addressed that. The existing mechanical units will remain where they currently are, so that condition is no longer needed. So with conditions 1 and 2, staff finds that the proposed project meets Section 2B and 2B2 of the Laughlin Springs Easton Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay.
Any questions for Melissa? Okay, thank you. Well, you'll state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Lynn Taylor, and I live on Shelby Street. I have pictures here of new dormers or new houses that have been built that have a wider stance on it. And the measurement from the trim on the window to the edge of the wall, and that doesn't count the trim, is 3'2". 3'2" is like 1, 2, 3. So this length right here, it's not very much. I have a house here that's at 103 South 13th, and I can give you copies. You see how wide that is? That's the front of the house. I have examples here that are probably wider. They're all within Lachlan Springs neighborhood. They're run from Shelby all the way over to Ordway, and then from like maybe 12th or 13th all the way to Park. So they're in the historic overlay. And dormers, the staff tries to force all dormers to be one way. And if you go around and look in East Nashville, you'll see they're not. The historic ones and the ones they've approved. So this is one on Fatherland, 1525 Fatherland, and the distance between those are quite a bit. There's a front dormer that I know was modified because I can tell by the edge of it, and that's on Forest. Here's a historic dormer, I believe, at 1201 Ordway Place. The house at the intersection of 15th and Fatherland is viewed from it's on a street corner. There's one dormer the entire width of that house. The staff approved it. So what I'm saying is I'm not asking for 5 feet on each side of that window. I have a bathroom in there, and it's going to be difficult to do that. Here's another dormer, a wide span. I can give you these pictures you can look at. They're just photographed with addresses. There's 3 copies you can pass around. So I feel I have enough space around that window, 3'2". And your job is to be the gatekeeper and make sure they're enforcing the guidelines the way they have been in the past. And again, dormers sit in front of the exterior wall. They sit on the exterior wall. Historic dormers. So it's not like stringent as they would like it to be. They like dormers to be designed a certain way, but that does not conform with the entire historic neighborhood in East Nashville. I've been there since '93. I've been doing work since the late '90s, and I think I know the neighborhood pretty well. So.
And is the dormer, just for the record, on the right side elevation, that dormer with the one window, that's the one
Yes.
you're referring to, right?
Yes.
All the other conditions you're fine. Well, yeah.
Oh, I've already done
you've already
everything.
done
The
it,
HCA is going to stay where it is.
Okay. So that's the only thing. Okay.
Liz, what is the width of the whole dormer?
9 feet. Took out the calculation. So from the window is 3'6". From the window trim is 3'2" to the edge of the sheathing. That doesn't even count the trim on the outside edge.
And Lynn,
Yes. Yes.
Just for looking at your left side elevation number 2, and then looking at right side elevation number 3. So that's the same window on the other side.
Same
like a
size
flip
windows.
side.
Yeah, we're limited with headroom. The attic is very short, so I don't remember and I didn't bring my drawings with me, but the windows are the same height. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I guess it was just that because you had done it on one side, and you're asking.
I didn't need the extra foot on the left side, but I did need it on the right side for the bathroom.
Okay.
I think
you can. Isn't it there, Melissa?
You can scroll up.
Yeah. If you have the back arrow.
Because those elevations those 2 drawings are side by side.
So, yeah, and then the previous one is the left side.
And if you look, the left side elevation, if you look at the larger dormer, I bet it's about the same. Yep, look at there. See no, I'm not in the right one. All right, so you look at the back dormer and the width of the siding, and you look on the dormer they're commenting about, and it's about the same width. And I can double check that on my drawings. So everything I presented to you, I'm not lying about. If you find out I'm incorrect, yank the permit and make me do that. So I'm just saying I did my research on it and drove around and spent 3 hours, by the way, trying to confirm that I'm right on this. It's a waste of my client's money when they are the experts about stuff. So,
Thank you.
Any other questions for Lynn? Okay, thank you. Open public hearing. Would anyone like to speak regarding this project? Seeing none, close public hearing. Discussion. And I think it's just a matter of just regarding the dormer glazing. Everything else seems to be okay.
Also, this house is not a corner house, is it?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
May I provide a little information for you too?
Sure.
Sometimes I think it feels like the recommendations are approvals or disapprovals, but they are just recommendations. That recommendation for glazing, we don't make this stuff up. That came from the commission. It's not a, us fighting people and trying to waste time and trying to waste money. We're implementing what you've asked us to implement. And if you don't want to do that here, that's fine, obviously. But our reasoning for asking for it was based on what you asked us to do.
What, you, Ann, any thoughts? No thoughts? Caitlin?
I mean, yeah, I totally understand the position of the additional glazing. With this, with this project, it's there. From the hold on. There seems to be, I understand for that one particular dormer, but I can see staff's and from prior commission guidelines, but there seems to be equivalent spacing at least from window trim to the edge of other dormers. If everything's to scale, even with multiple windows, there seems to be at least semi-equivalent distances, which for my eye, it doesn't look bad to me. It's not beyond the midpoint, but it seems to be kind of right at it almost. So if you take off the porch, but that, the roof structure's still there. So that in this particular instance, the one window, I guess, doesn't bother me.
Did you just say it was past the midpoint of the building?
I don't think it is. It's not. It seems to be kind of at the midpoint, right? Because the shaded is the light shaded is existing, yeah, and then the right. So if we're looking at the right side elevation, but it's not in the very front. It's not a corner. Those are the things that make this one not offensive to me.
Any comments, Monet?
I think I agree with Commissioner on that as well, is that when we look at that to, be sure we are on guidelines, but it's not visual from the street. It's on a side facade, not a front facade. You lean to have a better approval on it.
Cyril?
Sounds like I'm hearing a motion here. So with respect to 1503 Gartland Avenue, I recommend approval and that staff approve the final details of roof color and trim and dimensions and materials of windows, doors, rear porch floor, rear porch steps, and rear porch prior to purchase and installation, and that the HVAC be located behind the house on either side beyond the midpoint of the house.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
HVAC staying.
Yeah, clarification is existing to remain on the HVAC.
Okay.
It's existing.
Okay.
Modify that.
Okay.
A second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, 2219 White Avenue.
Just one. Thank you.
Lynn. You want to keep one that?
There's one here.
Okay.
Need one. Lynn, do you need this one?
No,
You can have it.
We'll need whatever
Yeah,
was
they'll
submitted
need-
for the record. Yeah, thank you. All right, so this is a request to construct a new two-family residence at 2219 White Avenue. The house on the lot shown here was built circa 1963. It does not contribute to the historic character of the Woodland and Waverly Historic Preservation Zoning Overlay. Earlier this month, staff issued an administrative permit to demolish the non-historic home. So if you could look at the photo, the lot appears to have a slight cross slope along the front of the property. The plans don't reflect that, so staff would recommend that
prior to any preservation permit being issued, that the plans be submitted to reflect that. The plan before you meets the design guidelines for height, scale, setbacks, and rhythm of spacing, orientation and materials, but does not meet the guidelines for roof form and proportion and rhythm of openings. So as proposed, the infill is oriented toward White Avenue with parking from the alley. The site plan does indicate some covered parking, but details of any detached garages were not included with this plan, so are not part of the recommendation at this time. As proposed, the infill is 2 stories. Historic homes in the immediate area are primarily 1.5 to 2 stories. Staff finds the height and scale of the proposed infill to be appropriate for the historic context. Cladding materials for the house include board and batten, hardy board and brick with a split-face concrete block foundation. The duplex is oriented to White Avenue with 2 doorways facing the street. The doorway for the right unit reads as the primary entrance and is accessed via the front porch. The left unit is accessed via a recessed door that's set back 13 feet from the front wall of the infill. The partial width front porch is approximately 10 feet deep, which meets the guidelines. And as proposed, the front porch roof continues the full width of the house at the front and extends 6 feet over a portion of patio that appears to be at grade at the front. So that, you can see that right here. The front porch on the right side is 3 feet tall compared to that at grade portion. So staff recommends that this portion of the front porch roof, the portion covering the at grade level sort of patio, if you will, be removed, as this sort of condition is not seen historically. So here's the right side facade. The windows are generally twice as tall as they are wide. However, there is an 11-foot expanse near the front that does not include a window or door opening. The design guidelines require an opening every 8 feet to 13 feet. Staff would recommend incorporating an additional opening here since it is so close to the front of the infill and would likely be visible from the street. So while the right side facade does incorporate the side gable roof form, it also includes a large portion of a flat roof form. So here's the roof plan, and outlined in red is the portion of flat roof that's proposed for this infill. The design guidelines state that roof pitches should be similar to the pitches found in the district, and that historic roofs are generally between 612 and 1212 pitch. While the commission has approved lower pitch roofs, those cases have usually been for front porch or dormer roofs, shed roofs, or for connector portions for additions, which are smaller areas of lower pitch roof than what is proposed here. So staff finds that the proposed .512 roof pitch does not meet section 3BE and recommends that the infill meet this design guideline. So here is the left side facade. Staff would recommend that the plan incorporate 4-inch nominal casings around all windows and doors with where siding is used, 4-inch nominal corner boards at the face of each exposed side, and 4 to 6-inch mullions between paired windows to meet the guidelines. And there are a couple of paired windows on the front facade, and those are things that are generally required by all design guidelines. So here is the rear elevation. You can see part of the flat roof form here as well. And context photos, the photo on the left is 2223 White Avenue, which is located to the left of the site. This is at the corner of White Avenue and Bradford Avenue, and the right photo shows 2216 and 2218 White Avenue, which are across the street. All of these houses are contributing. And more photos. The photo here on the left is 2222 White Avenue, which is across the street and at the corner of White and Bradford. And then the photo on the right is 2217 White Avenue, the best photo I could get on that day. And this is the house that's located immediately next door to the right. So, and both of these houses are contributing. So, in conclusion, staff recommends approval of the project with the following conditions. One, that the finished floor height be consistent with the finished floor heights of the adjacent historic houses to be verified by MHCC staff in the field. 2, a front elevation reflecting the cross slope on the property be submitted prior to issuance of a preservation permit. 3, the portion of porch roof covering the at-grade patio be removed. 4, the roof form at the rear of the infill shall meet section 3B2.E. 5, an additional window or door opening shall be incorporated on the right side facade near the front. 6, staff approve the materials for the masonry trim, porch floors, porch steps, porch posts, railings, windows, doors, driveway and walkway prior to purchase and installation. 7, staff approve the color and texture of the shingle roof and the metal roof. And then 8, that 4-inch nominal wood casings be required around doors, windows, and vents, and clapboard walls. 9, 4-inch corner boards be required at the face of each exposed corner. 10, paired windows have a 4 to 6-inch mullion between them. And then 11, the HVAC units be located behind the house or on either side at the midpoints. And with these conditions, staff finds that the project can meet Section 3B2 of the Woodland and Waverly Historic Preservation Zoning Overlay Design Guidelines.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from Melissa?
Yeah, Melissa, I do have questions, particularly about the flat roofs in the back. Oftentimes we'll see applications, and I can think of applications in this neighborhood where, let's just say the roof forms are oppressive related to the house. And in this instance, with not doing a flat roof that's sort of in the back and addresses the rear, if it were another form, would that be better or maybe taller? Has that been given consideration in that it's not in compliance, but yet the result might not be as desirable? That's a curiosity, having seen so many of these locomotive kind of things that run down the lot.
And I know we've had conversations about the roof form, and previous iterations had a rooftop patio that we worked with them to eliminate. So when we did get in short, we haven't seen anything other than a similar roof form to what you see here.
Okay.
So.
All right. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
The applicant here would like to come forward and state your case.
Yes. Thank you.
Also state your name and address.
Thanks. Hello, I'm Buck Snyder. I live at 2308 White Avenue. That's also a historic home that was approved through this commission. I just wanted to bring up a few quick points. Regarding the roof, we have actually, and we didn't have a chance to update this in this submittal, but we've eliminated the flat roof. We're hoping that that would be a staff level approval. We're hoping to run a single gable down the back and maybe slightly change that at the back elevation just for architectural effect. But we've done away with the flat roof, so on the side gable, we'd run from the midpoint straight back. I've got a brief drawing if you guys want to see that.
I think this is new information.
Yeah.
Is that correct? It's a new drawing?
That is, yeah.
So you'll need to vote on whether or not you would like to see new information.
Well, yeah, if you want to give it to them, but why don't you look at it first, Robin? Could you give it to Robin?
Oh,
Ben's got it.
Oh, Ben's got it.
Mm-hmm.
While Robin is reviewing that, you actually have a rule on new information, and if it pleases the board, I'm happy to read that to you just to refresh what the context is. It is on page 7 of your rules, and it is trying to find the citation. It is in section 8, section 8C, and it is number 5. The applicant or his representatives may not provide new information at the public hearing. New information is information that is substantively inconsistent with any material respect with the application as submitted by the application. So to the extent that any information is substantively inconsistent with any material respect of the application, then you would need to vote on whether or not you want to accept new information at this time. That said, if there is a revision in the application, the board and the applicant can defer the application so that the staff can have time to review the information and make a recommendation to the board. But I'll let Robin tell you her thoughts on whether it's substantively different from what you've already seen. Okay.
I'm going to make an assumption here that assuming you're headed towards approval with a condition that the flat roof change, what we have is just a roof form. So we don't know exactly what that means for the elevations, but based on this, I think staff would feel comfortable with that just being added as a condition, and then we could work it out between staff and applicant with the understanding to the applicant that if anything is more different than what I'm expecting, then it might need to come back to the commission.
And that's perfectly fine. I think what I was trying to do is just explain that we have made efforts to comply with the third recommendation.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was thinking. That's why I wanted to make sure Robin looked at it. I think what we'll do is just keep it in there with approval, and then that'll be part of the recommendation. But it sounds like he's on the right track to get it approved.
Yeah, that was, I guess, just our plan to meet the recommendation was to conform.
Were there any other comments that you had, or?
No, just generally speaking, you couldn't really see the neighboring. This neighboring house. It's not on the screen. We tried to keep the same form as the houses on either side of us, on the same side of the street. They both have a front gable with a front porch. This one and the other one that's covered by the trees. And we're happy with all the staff recommendations. So thank you.
All right. Any questions for the applicant before he leaves? Did you have something, Robin?
I will say legal has advised me, it helped me. I don't feel like this is inconsistent. Am I saying it right? So if you don't need to vote on it, and if you'd like to see it, I'm happy to hand it out.
Yeah, I don't think so.
No, you don't want to see it, or?
I think based on what you said before, we're probably leaning toward approval, and we just leave it. And he's made an already gallant effort, and we'll let you deal with that.
Okay, thank you.
And it sounds to me like the clause, the condition within the staff recommendation will cover that.
Yeah, we'll cover it.
And allow the staff then to make a determination of
whether he did it or not. Yeah.
And again, if anything is remotely of a concern, we'll bring it back to you.
Yeah. So can I have a motion? Unless there's more discussion, I'm sorry.
I would like to have some more discussion.
Yeah,
I'd like
please.
to hear the other commissioners' opinion. And it specifically regards the roof slope. You know, I know flat roof forms might not be next door or even prevalent within the district. In looking at the roof plan, this isn't a rooftop deck. It's not a occupied space. There's not a railing. There's not other obtrusive things. I have seen on other applications less desirable outcomes to roof, you know, a duplex that just goes on and on and on forever. I don't find this out of keeping in form or with the other guidelines as presented myself, with deference to the staff, that it is not a sloped roof per se, but I feel like a gabled roof on it that's got a really low slope to kind of hide behind the front architecture is not an improvement, in my opinion. And I think that's where the project would tend to move to satisfy the conditions of approval. I'd just like to hear other commissioners' opinions about what amounts to the rear side elevation and a rear elevation change.
Is that just the roof plan aerial, or is it a rear? Is it an elevation?
It's just a roof plan.
Okay. I don't know if
Well, I mean,
we can vote to look.
It affects all of those things.
Yeah.
And I think to do, if you've got a nicely resolved and proportioned gables on the front of the structure, and I would argue that this project does, and then you sort of hide behind that this low sloping, really wide, goofy thing off the back of something that's a nod towards traditional architecture but has some contemporary elements to it. I don't know that a sloped roof is a better solution, and I personally don't have an objection to the flat portion of the roof that's only visible from a side elevation more towards the rear and from the rear.
Interesting. I did like your term, the locomotive. I mean,
that's what we
when
get.
you said it earlier, yeah.
I do think that there are some opportunities for the architect to accommodate a sloped roof. I actually find that the rear elevation is pretty well in keeping with design guidelines, and that the addition looks totally separate than what the other building looks like. However, both those are additions, so it's not like you're keeping an existing structure and then adding on with a divergent form. However, the side elevation, I think, with that flat wall with a flat roof does come across as more of what we typically see as a commercial form in a highly residential neighborhood. So I'm fairly optimistic that between the architect and the owner and the staff, that they will be able to come up with something that meets the guidelines, but that also will wind up being appropriate to the neighborhood.
Want to strike a motion?
Sure. So with that said, so it's been, I move that for 2219 White Avenue, that we approve this application with recommendations as outlined in the staff recommendations.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Motion carries. So 2904 Hawthorne was deferred. So next is 402B North 17th Street.
Okay, this is a request to construct a new single-family residence at 402B North 17th Street. The lot here is currently vacant. The plan before you meets the design guidelines for height, scale, setbacks, and rhythm of spacing, orientation, materials, and roof shape, but does not meet the design guidelines for proportion and rhythm of openings. As proposed, the infill is oriented to North 17th Street with parking from the alley. The site does show a carport pad off the alley, but a carport is not proposed at this time. While staff finds that the depth of the infill could be appropriate in this case, staff has advised the applicant that the depth could present a challenge for any future outbuilding, given the required rear setback as well as the separation between the house and the outbuilding. As proposed, the infill is 1.5 stories. Historic homes in the immediate area are primarily 1 to 1.5 stories. Staff finds that the height and scale of the proposed infill to be appropriate for the historic context. The house will be clad in fiberboard lap siding with a board and batten accent in the side gable fields. The foundation would be split face concrete block. So here's the left side facade. So not all of the windows are twice as tall as they are wide, which is typical of historic proportions for openings. While some smaller square windows might be appropriate on the rear facade or on the sides near the rear, staff finds that the infill incorporates too many smaller square windows where they will likely be visible. So here we see the right side facade, and you can see that it also incorporates some smaller square windows, including those in the gable field. Staff recommends that the window openings on the right side be revised to meet the design guidelines. And here we have the rear elevation and some context photos. So the house on the left includes 407 and 409 North 17th Street, and the one on the right is 411. All of these houses are located across the street, mid-block, and are historic. And here we have the photo on the left is 402 North 17th Street, which is a historic house that's located immediately next door to this site to the right. On the right photo is 406 North 17th Street, which is 2 houses down on the left. It's also contributing. In conclusion, staff recommends approval of the project with the following conditions. The finished floor height shall be consistent with the finished floor heights of the adjacent historic houses to be verified by MHCC staff in the field. That staff approve the roofing material and color, trim, porch floor, steps, porch posts, porch railing, windows, doors, driveway material, and walkway material prior to purchase and installation. And that the proportion of openings on the right side facade be revised to meet section 2B7, and that the HVAC be located behind the house or on either side at the midpoint or beyond. So with these conditions, staff finds that the proposed infill can meet section 2B of the Lockland Springs East End Neighborhood Conservation Zoning Overlay Design Guidelines.
Any questions for Melissa?
I do. Melissa, I know reading the recommendation, you had cited height and scale on width and height. However, on the depth of the building, how does that relate to the other historic context?
So, well, and I only put so the site plan in your staff recommendation shows the adjacent historic house, which is, show the photo of that. So it's here on the left. A couple years ago, an addition was approved that added 30 feet of depth to that house, which the depth of this infill, while still a bit longer, is fairly comparable to that, along with the fact that this lot is fairly shallow at 128 feet. And given that the height and scale of the infill, staff found that the depth could be appropriate in this case.
How about at the other buildings, not just the one adjacent, but how about, 2 or 3 houses down, the other contributing properties? How does it compare there?
Right. Well, as proposed, it is deeper than most historic homes. However, when you think about those, an addition would be permitted on most of those that would increase the depth, like the house next door.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
But for the carport pad, I mean, they would not be able to come back and build an actual carport.
Well, staff would not be able to administratively permit that, given the setbacks. So, depending on the size, I'm assuming it would probably be a fairly small carport. It would have at least a 3-foot rear setback, maybe more. And the guidelines requires 20 feet between those, and while the commission's reduced it to, I think, about 10, I think it's, as proposed here, maybe like 5 or 6 feet separation.
But I did hear you say that you had reminded them.
Yeah, and we had communicated that with the applicant, so just to make them aware of that beforehand.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. Would the applicant like to come forward and state your case? Please give us your name and address.
Brad Sayers with Foursquare Design Studio at 628th Avenue South. I think primarily the right side, we've addressed the overall scale being twice as tall as they are wide in the windows. with the, and I don't know if this one reflects that or not. Yeah, which we have addressed. These drawings don't indicate the updated window sizes on the right side, with the exception of the two top ones, which are in bathrooms, and one is in a bathroom and one is in a closet. So we'd like to keep those obviously high so that there's no low windows in that particular area. And the other two on the back side of this right elevation are in a master bedroom, and the client has requested those size windows because they intend to put nightstand and didn't want anything, any possible viewing from adjacent home. So those are the reason that we did not change those. We did change all the windows all the way back to the fourth one back on the bottom right, to be the twice as tall as they are wide. So those have been addressed. But the remaining windows are just client would like to keep them in that way because of the space they are located.
Yeah, the right arrow once more. There you go. Thank you.
Only reason why, as you were describing the ones that you in question,
okay.
if do you mind doing that again based on this diagram?
Yes. The two top windows, one is in a closet and one is in the bath area. The client has requested that those maintain that height just for privacy. And the same is with the master bedroom suite, which is the bottom right corner. Those two windows would be on either side of where they intend to put their bed. So they wanted to be able to do a nightstand and also maintain privacy as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Oh, any other comments? I didn't mean to rush you.
No, I think that's it. I guess I can address these two while I'm here. Those two are above, going to be above some built-ins on either side of a fireplace, and so we were trying to keep those windows as skinny as possible, so you could have as much built-in space as they would like. If we have to adjust those, then I'll consult with the client and address those at that time.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Seeing none, open public hearing. Would anyone like to speak regarding this project? Seeing none, close public hearing. So I guess we're really just on his description of the windows, and they were as a functionality as opposed to aesthetic, I guess we're saying. It's more of a function.
But if I heard right, there's two that would like to remain on the left elevation on the ground floor, and then two that would like to remain at the rearmost part of the right elevation.
And the top.
And the top.
So all the ones that she had a problem with.
Yeah.
What?
Right? Yes.
Okay. So the paired windows and then the two that I think are in the kitchen, if you look at the plan, those are ish enough to height to width.
I'm sorry, which one?
The paired, the two paired in the kitchen and then one's in the.
And I'm sorry, which ones were going to be on the left or right facade?
The right.
All right.
Oh, yeah, no, so they're not changing any of the ones you have a problem with, okay.
So, no, we did have conversation, and they did make some adjustments on some of the windows, and I think staff was kind of about the ones near the rear. Sometimes you do see some square ones on the rear of the sides or the rear, but the ones in the gable filled compared to on the left side just don't meet the design guidelines. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The two at the top were the ones that I thought looked a little. I understand the function of it, but they do look a little. I hate to say odd, but they, you know.
I'll agree when you look at, and I get from the plan, I know we don't review plans, but I get from the plan that you're sticking a square window above the toilet seat.
I totally get
and
it,
that's just a little bit of perceived privacy that there's a blocking wall there,
Yeah.
but people don't look at elevations at anything really, so nothing reads an elevation. If that weren't so tight to the edge of the, that's rhythm of window spacing, but I think the height of that one is, a lot of square windows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the most, just the two at the top, I think need to absolutely conform to the guidelines. I just think they look odd, and we don't look at function of what's inside the house. We look at if they fit the guidelines, and I
Those
think
two,
they do not. And those are the two that I think would be very highly visible. They're on the second floor. I think it just looks odd for that whole side facade. On either side, as Melissa said, the very rear ones on that right elevation, if the top two are conforming, then and then there's two on the back.
Maybe
I don't see a problem with that necessarily, because then there's not four on one facade. And then and then on the left elevation, the two non-conforming are in the back. Whether or not that's still four on a house, they're non-conforming, they are in the very back. I have a problem with the two at the top and the gable.
Yeah, and I think the two in the top gable, they might also look at some horizontal adjustments to those that might make it a little bit easier. They do have windows in the closet downstairs, which, in most of those cases you put blinds on the inside, and and it's really irrelevant. And so I think that there may be ways to achieve a better look, because in addition to them being short, their placement on that elevation are a little interesting as well. So I think those could be solved within the staff guidelines.
What about that two on the? Anybody else have any other comment? Any other? I'll say comments about the two in the living room.
Was that a utility room?
Just the ones in the left elevation.
Yeah, left elevation. We shouldn't be saying funky anymore.
Yeah, left elevation.
I just think we have to, we've dealt with the infills, and we've got some requirements that we need to meet. I'm afraid that if we start making too many exceptions, it's going to come back to haunt us. That we've written these for a reason, and I think they need to be complied with. Yeah. And I know it's very difficult sometimes because of the functions of the design, but I think
I was thinking this. Well, not as my president, please, but that I was thinking those two looked maybe could work with those two. The two on the other elevation.
Yeah, you're talking about the family room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
I think we should go by guidelines on that as well.
Yeah.
Because it's feasible to do that.
Any other comments from you guys?
I'll make a motion to begin this.
Okay.
That I make a motion that we adopt staff recommendation for 402B North 17th Street as submitted.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Motion carries. So next to other business, rules of order revision.
Do we have enough training? Is that
They swapped them. That's another thing that happened.
Okay.
We swapped P and Q.
On this one, we're recommending two changes to your existing rules of order and procedure. And one of them is to add some information about ex parte communications, just that they're not allowed. That's nothing new. It's something you've been trained with since the very beginning. We just thought it might be useful to have it in black and white in the rules. And then the other piece is site visits. That's under 6 meetings. And for this, it doesn't mean your general usual site visits where you're driving past the property. This means if we think it's useful for you to actually get inside the building. And of course, the vast majority of the time, you don't need to do that because you're only reviewing exteriors. But sometimes with demolition requests, that is helpful. So if at some point that would be useful, this kind of outlines exactly how that should happen, so we're avoiding that ex parte communications again.
I think in the history of my tenure here is that on some issues it's been very, very helpful to see the condition, the structure itself. So I'm in agreement with that a lot.
So is this a change that just happens? Do we need to vote on this?
Yes, this is an addition, an alteration to the rules.
We are ready for motion unless there's any questions. I was just reading through it again, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that all.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, CLG training?
It's on the desktop.
I'm sorry?
I was just letting Robin know.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
We've asked Justin to come back next month. He was going to talk about Secretary of Interior standards, but we did want to go ahead and talk a little bit about what happens behind the scenes. Obviously, it's not something you are directly involved with, but questions come up about how things take place and what happens when. So we thought it'd be useful to just run through this, and I'll ask staff.
Excuse me, Robin.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I closed public hearing. I know there's only one person here, but I forgot to do that, so close public hearing for the rest of the meeting.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And I'd ask staff to jump in at any point. I may not be looking right at you, so feel free to rudely jump in so we can get those points made. And you guys too, if you have questions as we go along, we can cover those. Of course, as you probably do know, one of the first things we do is we try to meet with people early in the process. Maybe not quite this early, but we do try to meet with applicants early to help give them some guidance on meeting the design guidelines and addressing how you've approved projects in the past, especially for infill or large additions. Let me skip this one. So then the next thing is the application. This is where they submit all their drawings that come to you. We do require what we call a complete application, meaning that we need all the drawings, they need to be to scale, we need a site plan, we need information about roof forms, we may need a roof plan if it's a complicated project. And so those are all the things that eventually come to you. And sometimes we can review things administratively. And what that means is we're not decision makers. And I know a lot of people come in and they say staff has decided this or staff has decided that. But we have not. You are the decision makers. But what you have done many, many years ago, way before my time, was create this list of things that very clearly meet the design guidelines. And so therefore you felt like they didn't need to come to you once a month. And so to provide better customer service, you've allowed us to issue permits for those types of things administratively. If at any point, obviously those are fairly general, if at any point we feel like it doesn't meet the guidelines or we're unsure as to how you might review it or consider it, we bring it to you.
Robin, is that online?
Yes, the rules of order are online, and this is a part of the rules of order.
Okay.
Do you ever have anybody wanting or questioning or hoping that you could do something
Yes.
and then have to send them in this direction to review this? Because this was done by an action of the commission. It's not like, despite what some people might have said, it's not like you just make this up as you go or that it's vacillating or moving in one place or the other. This is an action of the previous commission, and it is in the rules and procedures.
Exactly.
Period, end of story.
And thanks for bringing that up, because what happens sometimes is that people will say, you have to administratively approve it because it's listed here. But we do not. One of the things is we can bring it to you at any time, because again, we're not really decision makers. We're just issuing permits for what you've sort of already approved. And then the purpose of the staff recommendation for those projects that do come to you is really two. One, it's a tool for you. Again, it's not our approval or disapproval. It is a tool for you. It hopefully saves you a little time. We've done some research for you. We've done an initial review of the project. So hopefully that is a good useful tool for you, and that's all it is. It is not a decision. Then that if you do agree with it, then it also becomes a handy record of the decision, because every guideline is called out and it's explained how it does or doesn't meet the guidelines, or if it doesn't, it explains why we're recommending that you approve it anyway. So it's a good record of the decision, assuming you agree with it, which of course you don't have to, but if you do, that's the record. Any questions so far? Any? And then what we recommend is approval, or approval with conditions, or disapproval. Obviously, most of them are approval with conditions because there's often elements of the project we don't know about yet. And those are usually materials. Those are usually things that come back at a later date. People aren't ready with every single detail of their project. And then that project comes to you for a decision. And if at any point, again, you don't agree with the recommendation, that is your call. We recommend in those cases that when you make your motion, you don't just say move to approve or disapprove, but you give a little extra effort to explaining why you're making that motion. So we have that on the record. If you're agreeing with the staff recommendation, we have that on the record. But if you're not, then we need that for the record. And maybe that's a part of the discussion right before the motion. Maybe it's specifically a part of the motion.
I might bring it to that right here. A lot of times you'll see like pushing for discussion, and a lot of it is for the applicant, so that they can kind of hear why we're saying what we believe. And so when it's silent, sometimes I'll push you guys for some conversation, because it's not for us, it's for them, so they can really hear our thought process. And then it gets to this part.
And it's for you in a way, because if the decision is appealed, the judge can see why you made the decision.
Exactly.
And also because it is public, that there are public that tunes in and listens into a project that they might be coming up on, so that they would be versed about how things go.
And there are applicants that absolutely reference past decisions of this commission, so for the record,
very much so.
It's important to distinguish unique characteristics of a project or a decision, and I geek out on some of the legal decisions that have been appealed and what those decisions are, and I know we'll hear about some of those to come, but it helps a lot, both staff and particularly Metro Legal, if we're direct and distinct and provide some help to defend our decision if we possibly can.
I think what helps too is because when we're in discussion, and sometimes we might know the answer because we've done it so many times, but I mean, I know Ben, or you'll ask a question, well, Ben, you know that. But I think it's more for public hearing as well, so that they're educated, we're educated, and they're educated to the process.
Yeah.
Well, and the minutes are just as important, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's part of that public record.
We appreciate the discussion as well. I mean, it's helpful for us in helping applicants for future applications. I would ask if you do disagree with staff recommendations to, in your discussion, talk about how something does or does not meet specific guidelines. Because we put a lot of work into staff recommendations, but it's hard for us to follow when there are statements like such and such doesn't look bad, or it doesn't meet the eye test, or doesn't bother me. Those are really hard for us to pass on to applicants.
Or odd, maybe.
Well, I think one of the things that bothers me is I know it doesn't bother me, but the italicized, I mean, we still, that, it is part of the record. And, I mean, it is part of the guidelines. And we have the authority to interpret that as an italicized. So it is really part of the guidelines, which, when they say, you don't really have, it's not in the guideline. To me, it is.
And that's a really good point, because you'll see that each italicized piece of information is under a specific design guideline. It is further interpretation of that design guideline. It's not a new one. It's how you've interpreted that in the past. And one thing that we hear a lot is, we don't understand Architects say, I don't know how to advise my clients. I don't know how you're making decisions. And that's why we've added that information, is to try to provide them with feedback on how you've made decisions in the past, so that it is a little more predictable for them. So yes, maybe it's not legally a part of the design guidelines, but it is showing how you've made decisions, and you do want to be consistent in your decision making. Thank you. And I thought it might be useful to talk about all of our roles. I've done this job in a couple of other cities, and this has sometimes been a struggle as to what is staff's role. And I think you hear that here with applicants who may not really understand what our role is. Sometimes there's a feeling that we should be an advocate for the applicant, but that is not our role. Our role is to work for you, and is to hopefully, again, do some background work for you. Sometimes it feels like there's two sides to the equation. There's staff and there's the applicant, and it's your job to find the middle ground. I would argue that that's not the case. We, again, have just tried to do some work for you to make your decision-making a little easier, because I can't imagine what it's like to sit up here in front of the public, in front of the cameras, and make these hard decisions. So we want to make that easier for you. So if at any point you have any advice or recommendations of what you would like to see, what you'd like to see in the staff recommendations, the type of research you want to see, just let us know. Because our role is to help you.
Well, and I think part of your role, too, is you're educating the applicants. I mean, you're sharing the information that you know that you've gained from our italicized opinions. And that part of that is the education.
Do you guys want to add anything to that?
I think you said there's anything you want to add to the staff recommendations or to the presentations.
Yes. And we've evolved that over time based on your feedback, what's in the
I think
presentations.
Great job. I mean, I read all the reports, and I mean, the presentations are great. Like calling out the certain thing, like calling out the window, like these are the ones, or like calling out this is the area of the roof that we have a problem with.
That's
that
good,
type kind of detail stuff for us, like, more lay people, that helps. That's helpful just to, I think, even just spur discussion on our part, because we know exactly, what you all have researched that don't conform to the guidelines, so that way we can kind of hone in on it. And then, I love reading like the backgrounds of stuff, like that bed and breakfast today. That was like super interesting. So I don't know if that was like
fun.
Everybody, but I read that the other day and I was like, I had no idea. It's like a totally new.
I've seen that project.
I had no idea.
And it's like, what are they doing?
It was
there?
so cool.
Looks great.
Yeah.
But so anyways, I just want to say that, that I think staff does a great job, and applicants might not like it, but that's not really your job, so.
And it is our job to help them.
Oh, help them, yeah.
But certainly not be an advocate to
exactly. That's what,
get what they want if it doesn't meet the guidelines.
We tend to use the word shepherd, not help.
Yes, shepherd.
Yeah.
And the presentation is a good point, too, because I do encourage you to read the staff reports. I know everyone here has more than a full-time job, and that's not always possible. But our presentations, as you can tell, are really short. We don't go into a lot of detail and a lot of background in every single piece. So to the extent that you can, of course, the first few pages you can skip. That's just the aerials and repeat of the guidelines. So hopefully that helps.
It does help.
Good.
Because we do
I
go
like
back.
the pictures.
Yeah, the pictures that really help.
But it does, help to have that, because then you're actually, in terms of public record, you're saying this is how we arrived at this recommendation, and helps the, it's absolutely the process, and it's very helpful and educating too.
Yeah, the presentations are great, especially when it's that new kind of call-out information. But I mean, I don't know what I would do at a meeting without like having all the staff reports like on my iPad. Like I pull up the project and I, like as they're presenting, like I'm zooming in on stuff. Like for me, that's been critical. I download them all, onto the iPad. And
I do it too.
Read them.
And
so
I
pull
should
it
know
up.
better than you guys.
I pull it up. And I can go back and forth. So if an applicant says something, then I'm like, wait a second, maybe I don't agree, or maybe I'm thinking about something when I was reading it, a couple days before. I can like go to that on my own and kind of control the information that I'm looking at.
I will say that when I go to commissioner training, I find that there are other cities where they don't have staff recommendations.
Yes.
These projects are scope of one commission. Oh, that would be.
I would say.
I rely so much on the knowledge, the expertise, and the time that the staff spends with all this. really is valuable.
We are very fortunate because there are a lot of commissions. So not only do the commissions not have staff reports, but there's no one working with that applicant ahead of time and helping guide them and help them getting to a place where they can just get a quick approval. Yeah, I don't know how they do it. Another role we have are the stakeholders, and these are the people that often, the neighborhood associations, for instance, or the Tennessee Historical Commission, those Historic Nashville, those are our stakeholders. And they often write to you via email or they come here to the meetings. And I would say that their comments and the public's comments, those may be neighbors or just people who are interested in the project, all matter. They absolutely matter, or you wouldn't be sitting here listening to it. But I would also say that at the end of the day, your decision has to be based on the design guidelines in order for it to be, again, upheld in court if something were to be appealed. So they are important, and they help guide you when it could really go either way. Did anybody else want to add to that?
I just guess I want to backtrack a little bit, is that I know sometimes we sort of question sort of the guidelines, but I mean there is so much public input in organization and opinions and discussions that created those guidelines, and they were created by those neighborhoods, and those guidelines are so important. I mean, and they weren't just a bunch of people sitting in a room deciding. I mean, these neighborhoods had input. Now, not all of them agreed with each other, but by and large, I mean, this is what they want for their neighborhood, and we've just got to keep that in mind, that those guidelines are so important, and it's not just us sitting in a room making rules.
And you bring up another good point, too, because a colleague of mine in North Carolina, he always says sometimes you have to say no to an individual, but you're saying yes to the overall neighborhood. And I think that maybe when the public comes in, and again, maybe it's typically a neighbor, they may not hear the answer they want to hear because approving it or disapproving it meets the guidelines, and maybe that's not what they want. But I have absolutely seen public comment matter in the bigger picture. You have changed the way you deal with outbuildings. You have changed the way you deal with additions and infill based on an overview of public comment. So I think it's important in that way too, which is I think what you were saying as well. It's not just about the individual projects, but it does help guide you, kind of create that check and balance.
And again, it goes back to you all being wonderful to educate the applicants or people that may come to you and say, I don't like this. Well, a lot of times, I mean, what I've seen is that a lot of times the people that are so opposed just don't understand. And once they see the big picture and you sort of explain it to them that this is really for the good of the neighborhood and we're not just picking on anybody, but this is, they sometimes change their minds. And it's nice to see.
We're picking on everybody equally.
It was mostly on conservation districts that I think I saw most of that.
This is leaking.
A little bit.
I guess most of that, what do I say, opposition, that you're trying to tell me what I can and can't do to my house. So,
And I want to talk about the chair's role because in June, you will be voting on a new chair and vice chair.
Well, I think the bylaws made it where Renee becomes the chair, didn't we?
Oh,
yeah.
We did talk about that.
We changed it. Yeah, we changed it for every 2 years, and I think that we made it where the vice chair.
Okay, I didn't know that, but go.
Give me a second here.
Maybe I wrote part of that in myself.
Are you just saying that ad lib? What's going on here?
It says that the chairman shall be elected every other year by members of the commission for a 2-year term and shall be eligible for re-election. The chairman shall decide all points of order and procedure subject to these rules unless directed otherwise by a majority of the commission in session at the time. The chairman shall appoint any committees found necessary to investigate any matters before the commission and shall advise staff on routine administrative matters. There's a similar provision with regard to the vice chairman and the every other year election and the 2-year term. And then the section on elections reads, election of officers shall be in June and the terms of the officers shall begin upon the election.
So that was the change we made, the 2-year term.
Yeah.
So let me double
Very
check the
good
minutes
memory.
of last month, last year.
Okay.
Because maybe we weren't electing a new chair or vice chair, but eventually we will be. And of course, your chairman does a great job, so I think it's pretty clear what the chairman's role is. It's to keep the meeting moving and making sure that everybody has an opportunity to speak and say what they think and keep order, which thankfully isn't too much of an issue for us. But that's the chairman's role.
Yeah, so how much does the chairman participate in the discussion and
That's
all
a good
that?
question. It's really up to the chairman. Obviously, the chairman doesn't vote unless a fourth vote is needed. But beyond that, it's totally the chairman's call. I mean, would you agree?
There's some chairmen who do. There's some chairmen who do kind of dominate their board, which is not bad, but that's just the way they do it. But some chairmen, like myself, I like for you guys to talk, and I just add in, or when you guys are really quiet, I'll try to say something.
Try to get the discussion going. And then, of course, as a whole commission, you have a role, and that is, of course, as decision maker. Then after a decision has been made, whether or not it's something that we approved administratively or issued a permit for administratively, or whether you approved it at a meeting, a permit is issued. The drawings are a part of the permit. You can see we add notes to them that reflect the different conditions or the different inspections that need to take place. And as you may know, over the years, we were having some issues with people, I'm skipping ahead, so sorry. So the permit is issued, and then the applicant goes to the codes department to get their building permit. We both use, as all permitting departments do, the same computerized system. And I'm not expecting you to read this, I'm just kind of showing you what it is. And so if we've reviewed a project and they go and they get their building permit, we are signing off on that building permit as saying, yes, the preservation permit has been issued, so it's okay to issue the building permit. Because they cannot issue the building permit in the overlays until the preservation permit has been issued. So that's a handy thing to kind of keep everything in check. And so again, we use this system. Sometimes you'll hear us say that we signed off with an ignore. Now, those are usually projects that come to us that don't need a preservation permit, but they might be in an overlay, like someone's building a pool. You don't review that. So that's when we sign off with ignore. That just means that code sent it to us because they don't want to take the responsibility, obviously, of making the decision on whether or not you need to see it. And we've just said, no, we don't need to see it. We don't need to issue a permit. Any questions so far? So the issue we were having is that most of our applications come from the property owner, the architect, or the designer. And those don't always get to the contractor. So the contractor, obviously used to getting a building permit, doesn't always know that they also need a preservation permit because they don't normally do that. Maybe they don't normally work in the overlays. So we devised a system where it's a little extra clicking in the computer, but let's say they go to codes and they start their building permit. Then they come to us and we say, yes, here, print it out for them. Here's your preservation permit. And please note on your preservation permit that you need to call us for these inspections. You need to call us for these final approvals of materials or whatever may not have been approved. And the drawings are a part of your permit. So if at any point the project doesn't match the drawings, then you need to come back to us. So you have two permits, building and codes and preservation. And you'll need to call both departments. So we give them that spiel, and I think that has helped a great deal with violations, unintended, innocent violations. Any questions about the process or anything you guys wanted to add about process?
No, I guess one thing I would add is that our main office is over on Sunnyside, but we do have a person
Thank you.
pretty much all the time at the codes department. So we have a desk at the codes department where a lot of people who either don't know they need a permit, it's just a good way for people to they're applying to codes that haven't applied to us yet, or when they're getting their codes permit, we have a presence there to assist people better.
And I think it's also important to note that with some of those ignores, usually that's before we enter that. There's part of the conversation where we're asking questions, verifying that there's not more to a project than they're just presenting to us. So usually with that ignore, we'll make notes in the notes section to kind of indicate what exactly they're conveying to us that they're doing. So
That's a good point.
that's important to note as well.
One applicant was really shocked and said, you believe what we tell you? And I was like, we have no choice. It's your project. We have to believe that what you're telling us you're going to do is what you're
You
going to do.
mean you don't tell us what you're going to do?
You're right.
That's the response to that one.
Do you find that the one-stop shop is really helpful in terms of, I mean, I think you said it, but how many people come through doing that?
I would say on average you probably usually get like 4 or 5 visitors. I mean,
A day?
There are days, a day where like you're getting tons of people, and it really just.
That's
and
a
I
lot.
think now that people know that we're there, they expect us to be there, so they might be down there for another project, and there's a line for talking about sidewalks, so they'll come over and just ask us. So they kind of know that that's a place to come find us.
That's great.
Which I think is helpful.
Yeah, that one-stop shop I think has helped a lot.
I think so too. I think it's been very useful.
Other departments as well. People in other departments.
Yeah.
I would say some of our most difficult ones are violations, and because those are ones where they've, we really don't want to approve them in some ways because it seems like they've just ignored it. But then they'll get back to that's why I bring it up about the whole permit process. Well, they thought they didn't need to go through it, or they did go through it, and so I guess this is just more of a comment than a question, but it's just those are the trickier ones for us. And we do lean on legal a lot for those too, because it's, and then they're the, we're getting the incredible sob story, rightfully so, because they've invested money in this and it's built, and now they've got to invest in it. But those are tougher for us. But I mean, you guys do a good job at putting the case out, but those are always just harder for us.
I think they're tough for you too because you don't see that many. There are a lot more that you never see. But the vast majority of people are more than willing to work with us. And our inspectors are very good at working with the applicants and figuring out solutions where maybe they don't have to tear out the entire thing that was constructed in so there is that back and forth and that dialogue. And the vast majority of people are willing to do that with us. Sometimes, though, they prefer to come to you and try to get the answer they want.
I think we have to be real careful of trying to help them design their structure. I mean, and we need to back off sometimes when we get too involved. I mean, we want to solve their problem, but it's really not our role.
That is a balancing act because you want to give feedback.
Yeah.
You want to help them understand what doesn't work without designing the project. Yeah.
Right. Well, and some of that, I mean, our discussion is giving guidance to the staff.
I think you mentioned this in other presentations before, but you mentioned about working with staff. A lot of times when we're recommending disapproval, we're not just being difficult. We've tried to work with the applicant, and whether or not they've been easy to work with or difficult to work with, we've not been able to convince them that we're supportive of what they're doing as a design guideline. So I guess what to say is we try as hard as we can to make recommendations for approval with conditions, but there are just those cases where we feel like they require total redesign. And in that case, it's hard for us to kind of get, sometimes it's too vague, the design feedback, where being specific as possible in terms of giving us direction, giving them direction.
And on that
and sometimes they just want to give it a shot.
Right, and that's totally their right. That's absolutely their right to bring anything they want to you, no matter what the guidelines say, no matter what we say. That absolutely is their right. But I do, to sort of jump on that, there is a concern sometimes if it's total disapproval, we would ask that you not say go work with staff, because we've already worked with them, and that hasn't worked. So as much feedback as you can give us and them to getting there without designing the project, again, I know that's a balancing act, that's helpful.
I think too, like what was stated today too, applicants sometimes, it is their job to prove to us, so that may mean they're driving around doing more, so it's, that statement, they did the work and you guys didn't, but that's if you go to a case, if you're attorney, you don't want, you want your attorney to do some work and bring stuff. So anyway, that statement was not correct, obviously, and
and sometimes we don't do that work because we don't think it's relevant.
Yeah.
Again, because we are implementing what we feel like you've asked us to do, or implementing what you have required in past decisions,
And, you know, what happens to a historic building, the context doesn't really matter. What happens to that historic building needs to be appropriate for that historic building. Infill, that's when the context matters.
Okay, say that one more time.
If it's an addition or some kind of alteration to a historic building, what you're looking at is what's appropriate for that historic building. And that's where the Secretary of Interior Standards sends you. So I know we had a discussion last month or the month before last about windows evening up on either side of the house. But that's not that historic building.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't want to look to the historic context to determine what's right for that historic building. We want to look at that historic building. Where are those windows? Where is it appropriate to change windows to doors or move windows around?
Okay.
Where we do look at the historic context is for total new construction, for infill or total new outbuilding. We're looking at what is around it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Mm-hmm. And that's where setting a precedent
Yes.
really gets us into trouble.
What you want to do is treat like situations in a like manner. So you're certainly not setting precedent with every decision that you make, but you may be setting a precedent for every other situation like that. And that's why we've kind of been hard on following the requirements for the outbuildings, because there usually isn't a reason for not following the eave height, the ridge height, the square footage. There isn't, usually there's a physical reason, the lot shape or size, the grade, things like that. And again, that has helped us be consistent with the guidance we give applicants.
Everybody thinks they have a reason. If everybody had a reason to get a deviation, then...
Well, and if there is a deviation from that, and the way we have made that decision before, we need to make sure it's in motion on why this is an why this is an exception to what we've done before.
Exactly.
I'll add, I've never known this board, and not since I've been on it, we don't hand out disapprovals lightly or frequently. But it's okay if we do. They'll come back. If it's important, they'll come back.
Well, did you have anything else, Robin?
That's it. Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
And where are we next? Where are we next month?
We are at the Parks Board building. So it's near Centennial Park, and I forgot the exact street, but it'll be on your agenda. It's on the website.
I think it's near that dog park, isn't it?
Yes.
Like right up, it's like up the hill.
Is this a tour? Are we on a tour of Metro facilities?
It's Omen Drive, but the main one, I think, is...
I think it's Parks.
It's Parks headquarters.
I think it's
But it's, up the hill.
But I'll send you a reminder, too.
Pretty much like across the street from that dog park on the hill.
Move for adjournment, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, sir. Second.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.